Hey everybody, this is Vincent and I'm back to share another video. I believe this is my sixth video now and hey, I have a new shirt on. Hey, it even has a cross. Can you believe that? Cross. It doesn't have jw.org though. I mean, if it had jw.org, I'd probably get privileges, but it's a cross, so this will get you disfellowshipped. So anyway, enough of that, enough of the humor, but we're going to talk again about the trauma of leaving the Watchtower Society. And, in the last video, I talked about how I felt physically when I left the Watchtower, how it was affecting me mentally, emotionally, when I would go to work. But if you're a former Jehovah's Witness, you know, especially if you were in the organization since birth, and especially if you were really into the Bible and you were into God, you know that what the Watchtower has taught you, its tentacles reach out into every aspect of your life. Nothing in your life was untouched by the Watchtower Society. And so when I first left, I was paralyzed for probably about 2 years. And I'm going to talk more. I'm just going to mention this now and then I'll expand upon it much later when I talk about my testimony. But for the first 2 years, I can't even tell you what I was actually thinking about. The only thing I thought about every single day was the fact that I was no longer a Jehovah's Witness. I would go online, literally, and spend 5-6 hours online studying the history of Jehovah's Witnesses. I was studying Bible Hub. I was trying to find answers. I was trying to find truth in Bible Hub and other resources like that. Other than that, I can't even tell you what I was thinking because I wasn't thinking of anything else. I would even go to sleep at night and I would have repetitive dreams. I would call them nightmares because I would wake up in the morning or at night with my heart pounding. Have you ever had those dreams where it's not really scary when you tell people, but it's the way it made you feel inside the dream? It created anxiety and fear and those kind of things. Well, that's the way it was when I left the Watchtower Society. I started reading, and a lot of ex-witnesses will tell you about this. They start reading some of the creepiest stuff about the Watchtower Society. You read about Beth Sarim, it's called. I believe that's how you pronounce it. It's part of the history of the Watchtower Society, and it's a part of the history that the Watchtower Society tries to hide. They don't really want to talk much about it because it's about the second president of the Watchtower Society. He built this house. Well, he didn't actually build it. He used slave labor, which were the Watchtower publishers, the Jehovah's Witnesses. They built this house. And the purpose of that house was Rutherford taught people that the dead would be resurrected, and those resurrected ones would come to this house. I mean, it's the creepiest cult story you can find. Also, too, Rutherford, second president of the society, he built this pyramid, a monument for the first president, for Charles Taze Russell of the Watchtower Society. And inside it had like a time capsule in it. It had literature and lots of different things inside. It was really strange. Anyway, I was reading about these things. I was rereading about these things. And you have to remember, I really believe this was God's organization. So I would have these repetitious dreams. They were in black and white, and it would be Rutherford. He would be like erecting this pyramid, and he'd be putting the capstone on it. It just again and again, and I just kept having these dreams. But it's because I was constantly going back and forth reading about this event, and sometimes you just reread things because you're like, I cannot believe I did not see this when I was in. So I was having nightmares, I was having anxiety attacks, all of that, in addition to all the pain I had when I was going to work. Well, that's when, it really began to affect every little thing I did. I had a hobby, and that hobby was a hobby that it I spent many hours outside. I spent many hours learning the skies. See, I was a stargazer. I would like to say I'm a stargazer still, but I live in the city, and so light pollution prevents me from doing a lot of things like that anymore. But I had all my star maps out, and I would go outside to observe the stars, look at nebulas and galaxies, and star clusters, all of these things. I really learned the sky. My sister had bought me a 12-inch diameter telescope, which is about as tall as me, 12-inch diameter. It was the greatest gift that anyone has ever given me, and it was something that I would never get tired of. Well, that telescope, that hobby of mine, I didn't pursue that hobby because I'm some science geek and, I want to tell you everything about all these planets. No, like I said, I'm more of a philosopher. I wanted that telescope so that I could see God. What I mean by that is, looking at the stars and looking at the galaxies and all of these things, that was as close as I could get to God. So I thought, what a great gift. I can go outside, look at these things. And I didn't just go outside and look at these things and think of God. I had a small MP3 player at the time, and I would download music from the Watchtower Society songbook. Not all the songs. I didn't think all the songs made for a good atmosphere, but I would download certain songs. I would also download specific psalms from the Bible. From the book of Psalms, I would specific ones, especially ones that related to praising Jehovah and the creation. There was different ones that dealt with, the heavens declare the glory of God, all of that. I would download those things. Okay. Well, that was my favorite time, was to go outside on my own and just be by myself. It was just me and God. I would listen to those psalms. Those psalms would become me. They were my words. They weren't just some pages in a book. It was exactly the way I felt in my heart. And I would praise God in prayer. It just felt like I was talking directly to God when I was peering through that telescope and through my binoculars and all of that. So that was a very special time for me. On a clear night, whether it was winter or summer, it didn't matter. It was my time to be with God. Well, normally that's a wonderful thing. I mean, if you're a follower of Christ now and you do that, that's wonderful. That's awesome. I could do that right now if I didn't live in the city. I would be able to do it more often anyway. Well, what happened to that hobby when I woke up? Well, like I said, when you combine the Watchtower with the Bible, it becomes an absolute toxic mixture because, yes, you may have loved God more than the Watchtower, but you still believe the Watchtower is God's organization. So when you leave, you are so confused and mixed up, and you need to heal. And that takes time. So what happened after that is I never used my telescope or my binoculars for over 2 years. I stopped looking at the sky. I stopped that entire hobby came to a halt. Because what's sad is when you can't even look at the moon, you can't even look at the stars without thinking of the Watchtower. I mean, I would look at the stars at night and it would give me those empty feelings of everything I lost when I left the Watchtower. I just couldn't do it. It was very traumatic to me. And so I didn't even really have anything to fill in my time after I left the Watchtower Society. I mean, my hobby, I just basically threw it away. I just couldn't handle it anymore. So I would, it was just, my mind actually couldn't handle anything. So my hobby went on the wayside, and then all I did, like I said, was read and reread anything that was in connection with the Watchtower, and I was trying to find answers in the Bible, all of that. So there was a lot of pain going on during that time. Well, in addition to that, I also wrote in my story online that, my grandchildren would come over, and if you were a Jehovah's Witness, especially if you were raised in, you believed in your heart that what you were going to pass on to your children was the greatest spiritual heritage that you could possibly give your children, is being in the truth and passing that on like a torch to your children. And I really believe that. I believe that I was giving my children, and I believed Grandpa was going to be the greatest person to pass on this to his grandchildren and all of that. Well, my grandson, he was just a toddler at the time, and prior to waking him up, I would, or prior to me waking up, I would take him outside, and him and my grandson and I, we would, look at the stars, because that's what Grandpa liked. We would look at the trees, and I would talk to him about who created these things. I would talk to him just like I would to a baby, but we had a good time like that out there, and he would smile, and it would make him happy, and he knew what I was talking about because it was something that we did regularly when he was there. Well, and I would hold him in my arms and kind of rock him, and I would sing him specific songs from the Watchtower songbook. Of course, I'm glad no one was listening to me because I'm a terrible singer, but he liked it. Poor child. He was smiling, and he would anticipate me singing this song in a low voice. Well, one day I was holding him in my arms, and I looked into his eyes, and without thinking, I started singing this song. And then right in the middle of the song, I stopped. I'm like, what am I doing? It was such a habit. And that's when I had tears in my eyes, and I thought, this child is never going to hear Grandpa sing that song again to him. And what that made me think about is what was I going to pass on to my grandchildren? What value do I have now? I mean, Grandpa's life has been around the Watchtower and the Bible, and I want to emphasize once again, the Bible's not the problem. The problem is you don't know how to deal with the Bible if you're in the Watchtower and you leave. So let's make that very clear. But now Grandpa just felt empty. It's like, what am I going to pass on to him? How to be a drywall finisher, a taper? I mean, come on. What is something I can give him that is of value? Well, you have no idea after you leave the Watchtower. So that really brought a tremendous amount of sadness, just seeing that. And that is just, like I said, the trauma of being in the Watchtower, its tentacles just reach out to every aspect of your life. There are so many other things I stopped doing, or at least I stopped enjoying it. I couldn't even mow my lawn anymore. I usually liked working outside, and but now that became a task. I just wanted to get it done so I can go back in the house and sit on the couch and have everybody leave me alone. It was just a very bad time. Well, we're at the 14-minute mark, but we're going to continue this the subject of this trauma, because I want to talk about some of the things that happened to me, some of the other feelings that I had before I actually left, because there's a lot of things that happened in the last, say, month before I left. There were some incidences with the elders. I had met with the elders like 3 times. I actually went to like 2 more meetings. After I woke up, I looked at my ex, or my wife at the time, my ex now, and said, hey, I'll take you to the meetings. I'll support you. I'll just take you to the meetings, but I am not a Jehovah's Witness anymore. But I thought I could handle just going to the Kingdom Hall. So we're going to talk about that in my next video. But for now, we'll leave it at that. And hopefully you'll watch my next video. All right. We'll see you later.